I stood at the edge of the mirror, veil in my hand, watching my reflection, watching her. The woman who was supposed to walk down the aisle in 3 days. The woman who should have been smiling. But instead, she stared back hollow-eyed, confused, and suffocating beneath a silence that was louder than any scream. It had all started 2 nights ago. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Half asleep, I reached over and grabbed it, expecting another reminder from the wedding planner or maybe a late night "I miss you" text from Ryan. But it wasn't him. It wasn't even a number I recognized. Just an anonymous message with no name, no picture. Just 3 words that clawed at my brain and refused to let go. Check her phone. I froze. Who? I typed, heart now sprinting. Who are you talking about? No reply. My stomach sank. My eyes scanned the room, the dim light from the hallway, the dress hanging on the door, the soft rustle of wind brushing against the window. Everything felt suddenly unfamiliar. Even my own breathing felt rehearsed, like I was acting in a scene I didn't sign up for. I wanted to wake Ryan up. He was lying right there next to me, his breathing steady, peaceful. But something told me not to. Something told me to wait, to listen, to look, and most of all, to pretend everything was still okay. That morning, as sunlight spilled through the windows and the sound of wedding preparations filled the air, I sat at the breakfast table with Brielle, my maid of honor, my best friend of 12 years. She looked radiant, glowing even. She was wearing the robe I'd bought all the girls for the bridal weekend. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her laugh echoed through the kitchen like nothing could touch her. But I watched her closely. Every glance at her phone, every half-smile when Ryan walked by. Every little detail began to feel like a clue I hadn't noticed before. And I hated myself for it, because Brielle had been my rock, my secret keeper, the one who held me when I cried over past breakups, who helped me plan every little piece of this wedding down to the calligraphy on the invitations. How could I even entertain the idea that she, of all people, could betray me? But still, I couldn't unsee the way Ryan's hand brushed against hers when he passed her the coffee mug. Too soft, too familiar, too practiced. By the afternoon, my paranoia had reached a boiling point. I excused myself from the bridesmaid meeting and walked into Brielle's room. Her phone was on the bed, unlocked, and I hesitated. Was I really going to do this? Snoop through the phone of the woman who had planned my bachelorette party, who knew the password to my laptop, who had once driven 6 hours just to surprise me on my birthday. Yes, I was. Because the image of that midnight message had etched itself into my brain like acid. I picked it up. There weren't many recent texts from Ryan, which surprised me. But there was one thread deleted. I tapped her gallery, scrolled down, scrolled further, then stopped. My throat dried instantly. There it was. A photo of her. In my dressing room, wearing my white robe. And behind her, blurry but unmistakable, was Ryan's reflection in the mirror, shirtless, holding his phone. Date stamp? 4 nights ago. My world cracked in half. The sound of the ceiling fan suddenly became deafening. The walls closed in around me. My hands trembled as I put the phone back exactly where I found it, every inch of my body now shaking with disbelief, with disgust, with something far worse than heartbreak, humiliation. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked out of the room like nothing had happened. I smiled through the rest of the day. I laughed at the bridesmaids' jokes. I nodded through cake tastings and playlist selections. But inside, a storm had begun. And it wasn't going to be quiet. That night, I lay in bed next to Ryan again, the man I thought I was going to marry. I listened to him breathe and wondered how long he'd been lying to me. Was it once? Was it ongoing? Was it an accident or a choice? But then I remembered the way he smiled when Brielle laughed. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional. And they thought I'd never find out. That was their first mistake. Because what neither of them knew was that I wasn't going to walk away quietly. I wasn't going to cry in a corner and call off the wedding like some devastated bride-to-be. No. I was going to marry him. And I was going to make sure they both remembered that decision for the rest of their lives. I began planning my own version of the wedding. Not the one with white roses and soft music and happy tears, but the one with secrets, public revelations, and the kind of revenge that doesn't just sting, it scars. They wanted to play games behind my back. Good. Because they had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't just a bride anymore. I was a storm coming. And no one was going to see me coming. The next morning, I woke up with a mission and a smile. Not the smile of a bride-to-be basking in the glow of upcoming nuptials. No. This smile had steel behind it. It was the smile of a woman with a secret. A weapon. A purpose. I made coffee. Played the part. Hugged Ryan from behind and whispered, "Only 2 more days, babe." He kissed my cheek, clueless. Still pretending to be the perfect fiancé. Still thinking I was in the dark. But I wasn't. And every move I made from that moment forward was calculated. I needed to know everything. How long had it been going on? Where had they been meeting? Was anyone else involved? Was I the only fool in the room? I started with Brielle's phone again. This time, I waited until she was in the shower. I told her I was running downstairs to get my curling wand. Instead, I grabbed her phone and connected it to my laptop. Within seconds, I was backing up everything: texts, photos, voice memos. I didn't have time to look yet, but I knew whatever I found would only confirm the rot already blooming under the surface. I knew I couldn't just blow up on them. That would give away my power. So, I did the unthinkable. I asked Brielle to join me for a spa session that afternoon. My treat. I said I wanted to relax before the big day. She squealed with excitement, totally unaware that I wanted to dip her in hot wax and bury her in the salt room. She sat beside me in the sauna, chatting about her new shoes, about how nervous Ryan looked lately. "He's such a softie," she giggled. "Probably just emotional about seeing you walk down the aisle." I smiled. Bit my tongue. Did she not realize she was talking about the man she'd betrayed me with? Or was this her way of rubbing it in? Either way, I filed the moment away like evidence in a courtroom. That evening, I pulled one of my bridesmaids aside, Jenna. She and I hadn't always been the closest, but I knew something about her that made her valuable. She hated Brielle. Back in college, Brielle had stolen Jenna's boyfriend. The grudge had never fully died. So I told her everything. Not in a panic. Not in tears. But with cold clarity. She gasped, covered her mouth, and then leaned in like a soldier receiving orders. "Tell no one," I said. "Not yet. But I'm going to need your help." She nodded. She was in. Now I needed Ryan to prove it. I needed him to try and sneak around again, thinking I was oblivious, so I could catch him in real time. So, I created an opportunity. I texted Brielle from my phone, pretending to be distracted and busy. I said I had a late-night emergency call with a photographer and would be out for a while. "Can you hang with Ryan in the meantime?" I wrote. "He's been stressed." She replied instantly. "Of course. You know I've got you." Oh, I knew something, all right. I left the house but didn't go far. I parked just a few blocks away and logged into the hidden security app I'd installed 2 days ago. 3 miniature cameras were now discreetly placed in the living room, the hallway, and yes, even in my bedroom. At 9:23 p.m., Ryan walked into the living room with a glass of wine. Brielle followed. They sat down on the couch, way too close for comfort. He rubbed her back. She laughed and laid her head on his shoulder. Then he kissed her. Soft. Familiar. Like they'd done it 100 times. My heart broke all over again. But this time, I let it happen. Because pain is fuel. And revenge tastes better when it's marinated in truth. I recorded it all. Every frame. Every whisper. Now that I had proof, I was ready for the show. I called Jenna and gave her the final instructions. She would help me execute the reveal. Not just to Ryan and Brielle, but to everyone. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about justice. I printed the photos. I clipped the video. I made copies. And I handed everything to Jenna in a sealed envelope labeled, "Open during toast." The plan was simple. At the rehearsal dinner, I would make a short speech. Then I'd say there was one more toast, by my best friend, the maid of honor,
Brielle.
She would stand, clueless, holding her champagne glass, ready to pretend like she'd been there for me all along. That's when Jenna would step up with the envelope, and the lies would bleed out in public. No screaming matches. No physical confrontations. Just cold, brutal exposure. I slept surprisingly well that night. For the first time in days, I didn't feel weak. I felt powerful. I felt like the version of myself I always wished I could be, the one who didn't just take pain and swallow it, but turned it into something precise.
Sharp.
Legendary. And as the sun rose the next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror again. But this time I saw something different. Not a woman broken by betrayal, but a woman sharpening her crown in silence, ready to rise. The rehearsal dinner was held at an elegant vineyard outside the city, twinkling fairy lights, white linen tables, and soft jazz in the background. Everyone dressed in their finest, sipping wine and laughing like nothing was wrong. But I knew everything. And tonight, everyone else would too. I arrived with my hair pinned up and a silver satin dress hugging my frame. Confidence was stitched into every inch of fabric. People greeted me warmly. Smiles, handshakes, praise for the couple. I played my role, the glowing bride-to-be. Brielle arrived in a wine-colored gown, her arm casually linked with Ryan's. They looked like a well-oiled machine of deception. A little too perfect. A little too rehearsed. She waved at me. "You look stunning, babe." I kissed her cheek. "You too." My stomach twisted, but I didn't show it. Dinner moved slowly. The speeches began. My father spoke. Then Ryan's mom. Some cousins told embarrassing childhood stories. Then it was my turn. I stood with my champagne glass in hand, tapped a spoon gently against it, and smiled at the room. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," I began, voice clear, steady. "You've all played such important roles in our journey. And before we step into our future, I think it's only right we celebrate the people who got us here." My eyes found Brielle's across the room. She smiled sweetly. Clueless. Which is why I'd love for my maid of honor, my best friend since childhood, to give the final toast. "Brielle?" She blinked in surprise, flattered. "Oh, of course." She rose, brushing down her dress, picking up her glass, and took her place in front of the guests. She adjusted the microphone, cleared her throat. Everyone was watching her. That's when Jenna slipped behind her and placed a small envelope on the podium beside the mic. I nodded slightly at her. Brielle's smile faltered. She looked down at the envelope, confused. "What's this?" I stepped closer, still smiling. "Something to share with everyone. Please, open it." There was a beat of hesitation. Then she opened the flap and pulled out the contents, a stack of glossy photographs, screenshots of her texts with Ryan. Photos of them together. Stills from the security footage. And then, on top, a flash drive. Brielle stared. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "Maybe play the video," I said gently. "For the toast. Since you and Ryan have been so close lately." Gasps rippled through the room like a wave hitting shore. She looked at me, stunned. Ryan shot up from his seat. "What the hell is this?" I turned to the audience, still calm. "Ryan and Brielle have been having an affair.
For a while now.
While helping me plan this wedding." Silence. Then whispers. Faces turned. Some people stood. Some just froze, mouths open in disbelief. Brielle's hands trembled. "You don't understand." "Oh, I do," I interrupted. "Perfectly." Ryan tried to step toward me. "This isn't the place." "No," I said, voice rising just enough to be heard over the murmurs. "This is exactly the place." I took the flash drive from the podium and walked over to the projector setup meant for our wedding slideshow. Jenna followed with her laptop and plugged it in. Within seconds, the room dimmed, and on the screen appeared the footage from the hidden camera. There they were, on the couch.
Kissing.
Laughing. Whispering. Undeniable. Some people gasped. Others looked away in discomfort. A few just stared, wide-eyed, like they were watching a soap opera come to life. I turned back to face the crowd. "This," I said, is what betrayal looks like. And while I may be hurt, I refuse to be humiliated. Ryan's face was drained of color. Please don't do this. You already did, I said. All I'm doing is pulling the curtain back. I walked past them both, past the betrayal, past the lies, past the years of pretending. And when I reached the exit, I turned once more to face them. I hope it was worth it, I said. Because now everyone knows who you really are. And then I walked out. Not in tears. Not broken. But free. The cool night air wrapped around me like a new beginning. Behind me, chaos buzzed, people shouting, arguing, consoling. But I didn't care. I had burned the false kingdom to the ground. And I was walking away with my crown intact. It's been 3 months since that night. 3 months since the lie fell apart in front of everyone it was trying to fool. 3 months since I walked out, not just of that vineyard, but of a life that was never truly mine. The silence that followed was louder than I expected. There were no more constant messages. No buzzing phone. No friend group chats. Just stillness. At first, it was unfamiliar. Lonely even. But then, something beautiful happened. I started to hear myself again. I'd forgotten what my own voice sounded like under all the noise of pleasing others, of pretending not to notice, of smiling through the ache. I had learned to survive in a storm, but now I was finally breathing in peace. Brielle tried to reach out. She sent letters, emails, even a voicemail filled with sobs and a shaky voice saying she never meant to hurt me. But meaning doesn't change outcome. Intent doesn't erase impact. And her remorse didn't rebuild the trust she shattered like fragile glass under selfish feet. Ryan? He disappeared. Moved cities, apparently. Someone said he tried to sue Jenna for releasing the footage, but the legal team shut it down before it even made it to court. He left the scene like a guilty man always does. Quiet, quick, and empty. I didn't chase either of them. Instead, I chased something better.
Me.
I went back to old places, quiet libraries, parks I used to walk in during college. I found my journal again, buried under a box of wedding favors. I wrote in it every night. Sometimes 2 words. Sometimes pages. I painted again. Not because I wanted to sell anything. Just because color helped me feel things again. And I cried, too. Healing isn't poetic at first. It's messy. Some days I laughed at memes and smiled at strangers. Other days, I sat on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m. asking God why it had to happen like that. Why the betrayal had to come from them, the 2 people I trusted the most.
But then slowly his answers arrived.
Not always in words, but in moments. Like the day I ran into an old woman at the florist, and she handed me a sunflower saying, "You look like someone who could use this." Or when a little girl at the cafe tapped my arm and said, "You're really pretty, even if you look sad." Those moments were divine whispers. You're not forgotten. You're not ruined. You're becoming. And I was becoming. People started reaching out again, but this time, not for gossip. They wanted to know how I found the courage. How I didn't collapse in front of all those people. How I didn't scream or cry or throw something at them. The truth is, I did collapse. Just not publicly. I bled privately, so I could heal publicly. And when I stood up again, it wasn't because I was stronger than everyone else. It was because I was done being weaker for everyone else's comfort. You don't need to stay silent just to keep peace. Some peace is not worth keeping. And betrayal? It doesn't define you. It reveals them. My story became a quiet revolution in my small corner of the world. Women messaged me saying they canceled weddings. Men told me they left toxic relationships after watching my speech on video. Even people I didn't know sent letters to my work saying they had felt so seen by what I did. But the best part? I didn't do it for any of them. I did it for me. Because the girl I used to be, she deserved justice. She deserved someone to stand up for her. And who better to do that than the woman she became? Now I live in a new apartment. It's small but full of light. There are no shared toothbrushes in the bathroom, no matching towels, no his and hers mugs. Just me, but it feels like home. I've started volunteering at a women's shelter on Sundays.
Sometimes I speak.
Other times, I just listen. Because I know how much it helps to be heard when your voice feels like it's been buried under someone else's betrayal. There's peace in my mornings now. No alarms yelling. No rushing to meet anyone's expectations. I drink tea slowly. I walk barefoot on the balcony. I breathe in today instead of stressing over tomorrow. Healing is quiet, but powerfully loud in its transformation. I don't check their social media anymore. I don't ask mutual friends about them. I don't sit and wonder what could have been if they'd made different choices. Because I made the choice that mattered. I chose me. And if you've been betrayed, if someone ripped the rug from beneath your feet and expected you to beg them to lay it back down, remember this. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to say, "This broke me, but I refuse to stay broken." One day, someone will love you with truth in their eyes and loyalty in their actions. But even if that day comes years from now, or never at all, know this. You are already enough.
Whole.
Healing.
Held.
And as for Brielle and Ryan, I wish them healing, but from a distance. Because some people deserve your forgiveness, but not your access.